Here we go. Come on in, come on in, come on in, come on in. Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? Listen, this is Victory Sunday. Look, USC got a big time win yesterday, and I got a special guest with me. I got a guest from the voice of college football, a very familiar face. He's from the voice of college football, Rick. Rick, how you doing, man?
Hey, USCJ, thanks a lot for having me on the show. Appreciate it. I'm doing great. We got a victory yesterday, and so we're 4-0. We move on.
We move on, man, and I feel like we got to show receipts, man. And I feel like this is a constant thing, man, because more so than anything, man, our own fan base has to be believers of this team. They have to be believers of this coaching staff, and we have to understand that there's different things in play when you're talking about perception. Perception is everything. And, media always gives us a certain type of perception. And, I was always told, seeing is believing. When somebody sees something, they're going to believe something. So I feel like we got to put the receipts out, and that's what we're here to do, man. We're here to talk about USC football. We want to talk about the good. Was there some bad? Absolutely, there was some bad. We don't deny that, but we want to talk about that, man. So overall, Rick, man, what is your overall thoughts, man, when we look at this?
Well, let's take a look at what we heard all week, right? ASU's not very good. We're gonna roll them, and some changes were happening at ASU behind the scenes. Kenny Dillingham, smart guy, he was hired because of his play calling at Oregon, and so he took over after 3 weeks the play calling duties from their offensive coordinator. And you got to look at it. USC is the biggest game on anybody's schedule. Absolutely. It was announced before the season that ASU, like 3 days beforehand, in all their infinite wisdom, from Michael Crow down to Ray Anderson to the now defunct Herm Edwards, but that school's a dumpster fire. And they said, oh, you know what? We're going to self-impose a bowl game. And so for those poor seniors that could have transferred, they are not going to have a bowl game this year. Not that they would qualify to make one, but this was their bowl game. This was USC. Right. Look at the crowd. They were despondent. Oh, no. They were despondent getting shut out by Fresno State, but they all showed out. It was Parents Weekend. I had friends there's a lot of SC Trojans out there as well. Absolutely. And so Kenny Dillingham saw some things on tape. There was some, specifically with over pursuit by the linebackers, and they had a lot of gadget plays, and they featured their running back, what's his name, Scatabo. And he was doing wildcat. He was throwing the ball. So, hey, kudos to Kenny Dillingham and the game plan that they had for USC. But it's always hard to win on the road, especially your first road game. But, hey, USC got the victory. It wasn't pretty, but I like what I saw in the fourth quarter. The defense got settled in, and they were figuring things out. They made adjustments. So I credit USC for that. Hey, and we won by 14. Yes. I mean, there was discussion of, 30, 40-point victories, but come on. How many teams are favored by 34 on the road in conference? It's just
absolutely. And speaking of that, I think people have selective amnesia. And what I mean by that is that you look at just a couple of weeks ago, you look at when Oregon played a team like Texas Tech. Texas Tech now, who is coincidentally the same record as Arizona State, 1-3 right now. They struggled. They lost yesterday against West Virginia. But, Oregon went up there and really it was a nail biter all the way to the end. But, from a national perspective, when you're talking about the media, they always instantly, they magnify things that go on with USC. But when it's Oregon or any other school, Georgia for that matter, because yesterday, coincidentally as well, Georgia just squeaked out a win as well, 49-21 against UAB, who happens to be a 1-3 team as well. So when you look at those things and then you look at those aspects of it, it's like, okay, we need to calm down as a fan base. I mean, we did win the game big. And, did we have to make some adjustments? Absolutely. Could we made them a little sooner? Would I like to see the defense tighten things up a little faster than what they did? Absolutely. But we got a big win. We got a big win away from home. We had a bye week. They were a little bit sluggish and lost in the sauce. So we'll talk about exactly what the good was and the bad, man. So when you're talking about some of the good things, man, let's talk about that first. And or do you want to talk about the bad things?
Well, here, let me just, speaking of receipts, let me share some knowledge with the Trojan fans out there and your viewers. I appreciate you having me on. If you know your USC history, and I think I shared this with you offline, Jay, it's like I woke up going, man, I've seen this movie before. And if you're a USC fan, you know what I'm talking about. It's the 4th game of the year, the road game. And to let you know, I went back to 2002. So the good years, even with Pete Carroll, we had our challenges moving on through Sark, Kiffin, Helton, and now Lincoln Riley. Take a look back at 2002. Okay. That was with Carson Palmer, first road game at Washington State. We lost 27-20. In 2003, oh my gosh, do we remember this game, Trojans? This was a national championship year. Went up to Cal, and we lost 34-31 in triple overtime. We were heavily favored in that game, and we were lackadaisical, kind of similar to last night. In 2005, we actually, last night at Tustin Brewing, we had Jaywalk. Jaywalk had the interception in that game. If you remember, 2005, we were down 21-3 at ASU at the half. Okay, Jaywalk gets the interception, his second of the day, the 4th or 5th by USC off of Sam Keller in the last minute. If that goes for a touchdown and Jaywalk doesn't intercept it, that would be 38-35 USC at that point in the game, and you know an onside kick would be coming. Okay, so again, that's a Pete Carroll team. If you go back to 2007, we go up to Washington, first game, the 4th game of the year. We win 27-24, a close win. 2011, again at ASU, we lose 43-22. In 2013, this is the tarmac game. This was a decade ago. Okay, it was technically the 5th game of the year, but we played 13 games that year. The opening game was at Hawaii. And we know what happened to Lane Kiffin. He got fired. We lost that game 62-41, Trojans. In 2016, remember with Sam Darnold, we go into Utah, Rice Eccles, and we came back, but we lost a close game, 31-27. And then last year, we remember going up to Oregon State. We win a close game, 17-14. So last night, USCJ, believe it or not, we won by 14 points. That's the best example of one of these crazy games, right? Yeah. Including 2005. So yes, I get it. Pump the brakes, Trojans. Keep your glass half full, not half empty. Hey, it's reality. This happens on the road. It's going to be a good teaching moment. So I thought I'd share that with you and the viewers. It's like, look, man, if you've been watching USC football, I just rattled off 4 or 5 different coaching regimes, teams, quarterbacks, all in similar situations. These are 18 to 24-year-old kids, right? Young men, and they're going to make mistakes. But the key is, okay, identify them, correct them, and move on.
Man, that's a great point, man. Thank you for taking us to the history lane, man. I mean, that is you got receipts, especially when you talk about history. History always repeats itself. That means that this is a team that's going to be excellent once again. That team was a good team, 2005 team. So
yeah,
when you look at some of the good things and when you look at the bad things, I mean, we could talk about the bad things, but I think everybody likes to. Hey, shout out to this. I believe it's an Alabama fan here. USC will be good. Y'all need to. Hey, thank you. Hey, absolutely. Hey, I totally agree with you, my man. Shout out to you. There's so many different storylines within this game. One right here when you're talking about the SC for life, talking about the trick plays, but then a lot of people like to magnify the defense, Alex Grinch. It's an automatic. Whenever anything they feel goes wrong, it's an automatic. It's incredible. So Alex Grinch can't make anybody tackle. That's number one. I've seen several missed tackles yesterday, and I'm not going to call anybody's name out, but there were several missed tackles, and there was some missed execution. And then not only that, when you look at it from the offensive side of the ball, everybody, like I say, likes to point at the Grinch factor, the defense factor, but we got to look at the offensive side of the ball and say, look, there were some miscues, some things that weren't being executed, and then some questionable play calling. When you look at it, we could have established the run way more, and success was happening with Marshawn Lloyd. He went 14 for 154 on rushing, and when a guy's in a rhythm like that, when he's in the flow, why not keep running? Why not keep running them? You have a success. We can control the clock. There's some things that we can do But what's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely 100% correct, Jay. And yes, whenever we don't win by the margin as Trojans that we expect, we look for excuses, and the easiest lightning rod is Alex Grinch. But if you look at it, there's a lot of mistakes from the get-go yesterday where the offense had miscues and they put the defense in bad positions. But the defense made adjustments and got better. Were they perfect? No. They had some mistakes. But you hit it on the head. Coaching. The coaching could have been better from the standpoint of running the ball. Take a look at 2005 when we were down 21-3 at ASU. What happened in that second half? Did we sling the ball all over the field? No. Matt Leinart got knocked out, a cheap hit. Turns out he had a concussion, but we ran the ball. We had Reggie and Lindell. They ran for 355 yards that day and 4 touchdowns. In that second half, a lot of those yards came. You know why? Because they couldn't stop it. They couldn't stop it. And they couldn't stop Marshawn. We could have had a little bit more of Austin Jones. I would have liked to run the ball more, especially when there was issues with delay of game, pre-snap issues, false starts. Let's just jam the ball down their throats until they can stop it. I want to see that against Colorado because Colorado, 2 things. They can't stop the run, and they don't have a run game. The only guy that could beat you is Shedeur Sanders. Keep the ball away from him. So that is going to be the key. Are we going to be enamored, kind of like what the media wants to see? Hey, it's Lincoln Riley versus Dion, Caleb Williams versus Shedeur. They'll make Shedeur a Heisman candidate again next week because he's going against going against Caleb Williams. No, let's run the ball. Let's run it down their throats. That's what I hope to see, and then set up the pass because that is what is going to destroy them.
Hey man, I totally agree. And let me get to this comment. Timothy says Texas Tech is way better than Arizona State. Look, I disagree. They lost against West Virginia yesterday, and then they lost against Wyoming. Show me the receipts where Texas Tech is better. I mean, but the thing about it, watching that game when I was actually watching the game against Oregon, really the referees kind of screwed over Texas Tech. Texas Tech could have won that game. It was a late interception on Bo Nix. I think it was outside linebacker, defensive end, had an interception on the sideline. So, but I think Texas Tech. I mean, what's the difference? Arizona State actually has. If you guys were watching, they have a good defense. They didn't have defensive issues, but they had offensive line issues, and then they had to replace the quarterback. But coincidentally, that quarterback played against us last year when he played at Notre Dame. You guys remember? So, any thoughts on that, Tim? Excuse me, I said Tim. Rick?
About Texas Tech?
About Texas Tech.
Yeah, hey, they're 1-3. You did say they lost it at Wyoming. Oh, that game was on the road. Yeah, it's hard to win on the road. Where was yesterday's game? It was in Morgantown. Yeah, hard to win. And believe it or not, there was one AP sports writer, and I'm not going to give his name, but you can do the math and check the receipts. He had Texas Tech as a number 11 team, higher than USC at 14 preseason. So Texas Tech laid an egg, man. And the Big 12 is not a good conference. I'm sorry. But some teams have not even left to go on the road yet, USCJ. Georgia just finished their 4th consecutive game at home, and so did Missouri. And guess what? Missouri's in the top 25. Who have they beat? They beat really nobody. Yes, they beat Kansas State, right? But who's Kansas State? We don't know. They won the Big 12 last year, but obviously, supposedly they're the best team in the Big 12. But here's an interesting thing, though, because teams change. And Colorado, yes, they did get blasted yesterday, but Colorado is a good pawn for the Pac-12. And what I mean by that, Jay, is they knocked off Nebraska, a Big 10 team. They knocked off TCU, who was in the national championship game, albeit a different team. They beat them down in Dallas. And then they also beat Colorado State, who is a Mountain West team. So the worst team in the Pac-12, like I said, they're our Pac-12 pawn for this last year. They did their job. They did their job.
Yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt. And Oregon still has to go on the road. You see what happened with UCLA. They went on the road. They lost 14-0 against Utah. I mean, teams play different.
It was 14-7. 14-7.
Oh, I'm sorry, 14-7. It was
Don't get me
14-0.
started. Don't get me started on UCLA and Florida, because come on, Florida loses by 13 and they drop out of everything completely, right?
Yeah.
But all of a sudden they creep back in because they beat Tennessee at home, right?
Right. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Now Missouri's in the top 25. We're gonna get on this AP poll here in a second. This question here, this statement here, SC wins by 2 touchdowns, and down in the polls, FSU wins by 2 points, and it's okay. I mean, they struggle. FSU struggled with Boston College. I mean, barely won that game. Then yesterday, I mean, they came out of there. They got very lucky against Clemson yesterday. So, man, we see the bias. We see exactly what it is, man. And we'll get on this AP poll, but real quick, I kind of want to deal with some of these numbers yesterday because some of our guys, they're still performing. They're performing very well. All of our defensive front, I think, USC fans need to be very excited about all the guys on the defensive front. Jamil Muhammad yesterday, 1 sack yesterday, 3 tackles for loss. Tacky Curtis, 2 sacks yesterday, 2 tackles for loss. Solomon Byrd, 2 sacks. He's still consistent. 3 tackles for loss. Ramilo Height, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. Bear Alexander, 1 sack, 1.5 tackle for loss. Christian Roland Wallace, 1 tackle for loss. Eric Gentry, 1 tackle for loss. And then Jacoby Covington, half a tackle for loss. And then, so we had a total of 8 sacks, 4 tackle for loss. So I think, when you look at the trick plays, there was some trick play action. I mean, things that I'm not going to say that we shouldn't be prepared for. We should be prepared for it, but you got to know that they're going to throw the whole kitchen sink out there.
Absolutely.
When you any thoughts on that when you look at these numbers, and then some of the big plays, I guess, because that's included as a pass when you look at that punt and actually thrown for a trick play.
Well, USCJ, you laid it out perfectly. You named all these guys. A lot of them are new, and we're developing depth and consistency. One guy I don't think you did mention that I loved his game yesterday was Romello Height.
Oh, yes.
I think Romello Height.
I mentioned him too.
Oh, he did. Okay, great. Yeah. And I was very pleased to see Romello Height. Boy, he was fast, man. He is a fast guy.
Fast.
Right. They had the teamwork with Solomon Byrd with a strip sack. Romello Height got that fumble, but that was a key play. Solomon Byrd is playing out of his mind. So you talk about technique. He came around for that sack, and did you see his hand just boom? He popped the ball exactly where it had to be. He made the play. Romello Height, covered it up. There's a guy, Solomon Byrd, who's still engaged in the game. He's engaged in the game. It's not going his way, but he's a difference maker, and that's what I like to see. It was we had the bye week. We're still trying to figure out the first away game, and we're developing consistency, depth. I like the defense. There's players out there. It's good to see Bear Alexander get off. Obviously, Jamil Muhammad has been solid all year long.
Super solid, man.
Tackett's showing signs, but he made a lot of mistakes. He did get a couple sacks. I was a little surprised not to see Shane Lee and Rajon Davis.
Yeah.
But I've had time to think about it overnight. And yes, we heard a lot. Well, hey, how come Rajon Davis is not playing? What happened to Shane Lee? Well, hey, you know what? Maybe you wanted to give some reps to Tackett, to Mason Cobb. I'm not going to fault the coaching staff. They know a lot more than me. But guess what? I know Shane Lee and Rajon Davis are going to be playing against Colorado. I can just tell you that right now. I can feel it. But yeah, we're going to have a rotation. I mean, you need to have younger guys like Tackett Curtis. This was his first road game. Mason Cobb has been off for almost a month. So I think you're going to defer to somebody like a Shane Lee. He'll be ready. I think Rajon will be ready. We're going to give different looks to Colorado. They're going to look at this tape, and who knows? What do you think, Jay? What do you think, Jay?
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree, and I think I might know a reason why some didn't play yesterday, but that's kind of we're just going to keep that kind of close to the chest. But I think it was some rush yesterday with Mason Cobb, but that doesn't mean he's a bad player. We've seen his stats. We've seen what he could do when he got in there. But we gotta get this straight. I think we still have another game, potentially Colorado, to give us a feel through game, because I believe once we start applying pressure to Colorado, and we'll get into some Colorado stuff this week. Shedeur Sanders, if you allow him to sit there and get time, he will pick you apart. But I don't believe that their offensive line can control our defensive line, and I believe that we'll add pressure to them. And as a result, I think it's another game that we can possibly fill through, and rotate players out and get a feel. But in the next couple of weeks after that, I think it's gonna be go time, man. It's not a lot of time to be trying to, and that's why I hate the way that bye week seemed like it came at a just absolute terrible time, because it seemed like all the momentum that we had it seemed like we lost it. It seemed like we were unfocused, undisciplined, and just really just thought that Arizona State was going to come lay down, man. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, honestly, I thought I had us winning 52-13, something like that. And so, hey, 42-28, we made a lot of mistakes. You could tell that the offense was out of sync from the get-go. And Caleb just seemed to be off as well. And the receivers were dropping balls.
Oh, well,
yeah. So what does that tell you, Jay? Every time that Marshawn Lloyd got the ball, he was ripping off for 10, 11 yards. He had, 157 yards rushing, something like that yesterday?
Yeah, 154. 14 carries, 154.
Okay. Well, hey, man.
Why not control the clock?
There you go. Hey, that's the thing. You have to adjust. If Caleb doesn't have it, the offense doesn't have it, we had 10 penalties. Hand the ball off. It ain't heavy, like John McKay used to say. There's no union. There's NIL, but there's no union.
Right,
right. And give it to Austin Jones. What about Quentin Joyner? I didn't see Quentin Joyner yesterday. Maybe he wasn't on a trip. I don't know.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I'm of the belief that, when you got a guy that is just like Steph Curry that plays for the Golden State Warriors. When he's hot, he's hitting them threes. You know what they're going to do? The coach is going to get a game plan to get it to him, man, because you know what? The man has a hot hand. Marshawn Lloyd had the hot hand last night.
Well, and the other thing, too, is, thank you, USCJ, for coming out to Tustin Brewing and engaging the fans last night for the Voice of College Football. We had our post-game live show there. Hope you don't mind, USCJ, but hey, for Trojans out there,
no. Everybody know you can find Rick at the Voice of College Football on YouTube, USC.
We want to make Tustin Brewing the home for USC away games. Come on down. Love to have you. We're going to have a former Trojan player every game, and then we're going to do our post-game live show from Tustin Brewing. We had Jaywalk there last night, and he said, at some point he's like, I don't like this type of game. This is where players get hurt. We don't need any injuries, right? And so the one thing I was concerned about, it was in the second half, and Caleb was trying to force things, and he was running, and he was towards the sideline, keeping in bounds. And he was getting gang tackled. He lowered his shoulder.
I do not, Rick. I don't like that, man. I don't.
No.
It's no reason. You have nothing to prove.
Exactly, and those guys are chippy. ASU doesn't like USC, and this was their game, man. And hopefully nobody was injured in the game. We might hear something this week, or that player won't be appearing at the next game, and we'll wonder why. But that's dangerous, man. That's the one thing that Caleb can't be taking shots like that.
No, man, no doubt, man. It almost looks like sometimes he looks for contact. I sure hope the coaches kind of calm him down and kind of get it to where he could because he clearly could have ran out of bounds, but man, it's almost like he stepped back towards the guy, man. And it's like, man, I want this contact, but man, that's something we don't need.
Were you closing your eyes last night at that point, Jay?
I was closing my eyes and I just like, man, Caleb, what? Like, what? I mean, but I understand the competitive nature aspect of it, but the last thing we need is Caleb Williams to get hurt. That's the very last thing that we need. But so when you look at it, man, we look at the coaches poll now, and we got the coaches poll and the AP poll. I'll go through the coaches poll, but the AP poll, I don't know which one you think matters. Which one, in your opinion, matters the most? I think they both have some type of influence, man. But which one do you know that matters the most?
Oh, I think the one that matters most is the AP poll.
Right.
Yeah, I think slightly,
Right. And so the coaches poll here, and I'm sorry, I don't even have it up, but I should have had it up. But it's Georgia 1, you got Michigan 2, Ohio State 3. Let me say something about Ohio State. Ohio State, look, I'm not impressed with Notre Dame or Ohio State, either one of them. Are you?
Oh, I just saw that and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah,
But Notre Dame in their house let Kyle McCord beat them, and he hadn't done anything all game. I was a little bit surprised that Notre Dame didn't feature Sam Hartman more. You got this great quarterback, and they kind of like they wouldn't let him out of second gear. You got this Ferrari, and he's creeping around the neighborhood going 45 miles an hour. Where they got a great running game, and they featured all these different running backs, but where was his arm? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. That's what I thought. I'm like, you know what? I wanted Notre Dame to win because I want them undefeated when we roll in the South Bend on October 14th. It didn't happen, but I think USC can handle either team.
I think they can. I think too. I think they showed a blueprint on each one of them because both quarterbacks are not necessarily mobile quarterbacks, but they can sling it. And Hartman, I thought he was a little bit more mobile than that, and it looks like when you get pressure on him, he's slightly a little different. I think USC can absolutely. I think we have just as good athletic guys on defense as Ohio State. When you talk about our front seven, you see how active Bear is. You see how active Muhammad is. You see how active all these guys are. So I feel comfortable and confident after looking at those teams that we're going to be okay. It's the running quarterbacks, like a Bo Nix. It's the running quarterback, like some of these other quarterbacks, Washington quarterback, Penix, that we got to face. I would say, more concerned about than a Notre Dame or Ohio State quarterback. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you, Jay. And it's 1 week at a time. So yes, we just got off the bye week. We have 3 more weeks to create that consistency, that rhythm, that depth on both sides of the ball. We're going to go to Colorado. We're going to go home. We're going to come home, play Arizona, and then we're going to go to Notre Dame. So we got 2 more games before we hit Notre Dame. And people that are concerned about Penix, look what he did against Michigan State and what he did yesterday against Cal at home. Yes, he's a great quarterback, but pump the brakes, Trojans. We don't play him for 6 weeks, and teams get better. So the game is not tomorrow. And by the way, it's not in Seattle. It's in L.A. So
right. Yeah, and that's a big one. I think Washington is actually a better team than Oregon. I think we want to see them at home. You absolutely, Husky Stadiums can get live as well, just like Austin Stadium. But it's going to be a rough environment at Austin Stadium. But I just think that we can have some success. We just gotta get this thing together as far as who's going to play linebacker wise or whatever. But continuing down this AP poll, Ohio State number 3, number 4 is going to be Florida State, Texas 5, and I don't get it. Florida State gets either to move up to number 3 or continue to be up at number 4. I mean, it's like they don't get the penalty. They don't get the penalty for having issues at Boston College. They don't get the penalties for having. And what I mean by penalty is that they get to move down on the AP or the coaches poll. It's like they get the love in spite of. But USC, they move down. You guys get ready to see. They're number 6 right now in the coaches poll. But when you look at the AP poll, they're number 8. What is your thoughts on that, man? I mean, it's like, wow.
With USC being where we're ranked currently in the AP and coaches?
Right.
It doesn't really matter right now because take a look at the rest of the schedule between who's in the top 10. And I outlined this in a video last week, is because how successful the Pac-12 has been, 29-5 the first 3 weeks and out of conference play, the number 1 record out of all Power 5 conferences. That has created the strength of schedule that's going to benefit USC if we win out or even lose 1 game. And we have of the next 9 games that we're going to play, and I'm including a Pac-12 championship game, 6 of those teams are ranked. Now, UCLA just dropped out, so did Colorado. UCLA will be back in the top 25. That was ridiculous that they got knocked out.
It's crazy, man.
But we have enough good teams that are on that schedule. I mean, take a look at it. In the top 10, I think you have 4 Pac-12 teams. You have USC, Washington, Oregon, and Utah all in the top 10. What does that tell you? Okay, and we play all 3 of those teams, and we could play one of them twice. So I mean it's stacked up there. What do you have? Let's say in the typical SEC conference, I think you just have Georgia in the top 10. Am I wrong, USCJ?
No, and so let's see. You got Georgia number 1. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Georgia won, and man, it's crazy. Yeah, Utah's number 10. Number 9 is Oregon. Number 8 is USC. Number 7 is Washington, which is absolutely incredible.
Yep.
No SEC teams all the way until you get to Alabama, number 12, LSU, number 13. That LSU probably could have lost the game against Arkansas.
Go ahead and say it, Jay. Go ahead and say it.
LSU was lost in Alfredo sauce last night.
No, they were the jambalaya sauce. Come on. I heard about Baton Rouge at night. It's different at night. You know, it's tough to win in the Bayou, but at night when you got the jambalaya flowing, you smell the corn dogs in the air, and it came down to a field goal. Really? It wasn't the same Arkansas team that lost at home to BYU the week before. Come on now.
We're talking We're talking about a UCLA team that lost against number 10 Utah.
Yeah.
It only lost by a score. But LSU gets blown out by Florida State at the beginning of the season.
That's
and
right.
They get to be at number 12, number 13. It's the most absurd thing that I've ever seen in my life when you're talking about this bias. Now Missouri is supposed to be, I guess, all world. Now most of the SEC teams are coming down to the bottom half. You got Alabama and LSU 12 and 13. But then when you come to the other SEC teams, Ole Miss number 20. Man, I'm telling you, Ole Miss loses to Alabama. Right, they got beat pretty good. They lose to.
Hey, how about that? How about that for Lane Kiffin? On the 10-year anniversary of the tarmac, he goes in there to a wounded Alabama team, and he loses at Alabama. They don't have a quarterback. You got Jackson Dart, and you still lose to Alabama. You think Sarkisian texted him last night and said, "Hey, you messed it up, man.
You messed it.
We rolled into Tuscaloosa 2 weeks ago and we beat them. What's going on, Sark?"
It's crazy.
I mean, what's going on, Kiffin?
Look, Sarkisian probably gave him a little bit of a blueprint, but he probably went his own direction again. He got lost in the Kiffin sauce. But I got love for Kiffin and Sark. But man, Ole Miss number 20. They're still number 20. They're still in the top 25, which is, to me, that it's all the way wrong, and it just shows you like the Pac-12 has to go above and beyond when you're talking about just trying to maintain your relevance in the top 25, and it's absolutely it's absurd. Then number 21 is going to be Tennessee, that's crazy because we know that they got beat down by Florida. I mean, here's the thing: the Pac-12 teams that lost, like UCLA, losing by 7 points, that's a small margin. But then when you're talking about these other teams in the SEC, there were blowouts. Florida beat the crap out of Tennessee. And Ole Miss got beat pretty good. So it's like, how do you measure, how these teams are ranked? I don't get it.
Like for instance, here's a good example. Florida was 25, and they win at home against Charlotte. They were favored by 28 over Charlotte. Charlotte's a G5 team. They beat them 22-7. Okay, 15 points, but it took their field goal kicker 5 field goals. Okay, they scored 1 touchdown and 5 field goals. Now, they were 1 of 9 on third down at home at the Swamp, and they had to kick 3 field goals inside the 10-yard line because their drive stalled. All right?
Yeah.
And their field goal kicker's name is Trey Smack. I think after last night's 5 field goal performance, they should call him Cinco Smack. Change the Trey to the Cinco, because without Cinco, you ain't winning.
Yeah.
Come on.
Man, no doubt about it, man. No doubt about it. There's a couple of comments, man, that I like because I think after the game, I don't know if you caught some of the I was on immediately after the game, but I did kind of catch a glimpse of some press conference last night with Lincoln Riley. I caught that today. And Brent Iverson says here, Riley admitted to bad coaching and tackling. Look, at some point, as I stated before, we can't put it all on. We can't put it all on the defense. You got to put it on, the defensive coordinator. You got to put it on individual tackling, player, man up on player, and then you got to put it on some of the coaching. And if the coach is saying that he messed up, it got to be some of the coaches. So at some point, you got to kind of look at it from that perspective. And I'm not just talking about Grinch. I'm talking about from an offensive standpoint. You got to acknowledge that, look, it goes wrong on other sides of the ball as well. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, totally. And again, these are young players. They had a week off. There was rust. You can tell just from the get-go. and you had, I'm not making excuses, I'm just telling you what I saw. And you had Kenny Dillingham just pulling out all the trick plays, and we couldn't figure that out until we made adjustments in the fourth quarter. And then the defense played like they needed to play. They were fast. They were getting after it. They were aggressive. We were causing turnovers. How about that athletic interception by Kalen Bullock?
Yeah.
That was I'm happy for Kalen, because that was that was a heck of an interception.
Yeah, man. So I think I got Jaywalk. He was calling me. I don't know if he wants to jump in. I know he was doing an open house. Let's see if he texts me real quick.
While you're doing that, I'll share with your viewers. I think Mello Marie says the Pac-12 hate is real. It is. If you look at the Pac-12 and the teams that they've beat, Power 5 teams that they've beat out of conference: Nebraska, Texas Tech, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Baylor, TCU, and Florida.
Yeah.
Compare that to the SEC and who they beat. They've beaten Georgia Tech, who's a bottom ACC team, bottom half of the ACC conference. University of Virginia, who's also probably one of the worst teams in the ACC. They beat Arizona, Cal. Arizona and Cal are the bottom 4 teams of the Pac-12, and they beat Kansas State. So Kansas State on a 61-yard field goal, you're going to go ahead and pump up Missouri, but that's your best SEC win. Come on, man. We've seen it. They are 5-7 against Power 5 teams, and the Pac-12 is 7-3. And you got 2 more games that the Pac-12 is going to get to play against a Power 5 team, and that's Stanford and SC both get Notre Dame. Hey, we'll probably go 1-1. You're going to finish 8-4 with some good wins.
Absolutely. I'm about to link. Let me plug in Jaywalk real quick.
All right.
And give me just a second. I'm about to plug him in real quick and get him on this thing, man. So I know he has some good things that he wanted to share as it relates to this. And I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it.
And Trojans, that's the reason why you have 4 teams, 4 Pac-12 teams in the top 10, is for those reasons I just listed. Okay. And that's why we don't really have to worry. Let's just play the schedule, and we are going to get the respect at the end of the day. I'm not really concerned about where we are in the AP or the coaches here at the end of week 4. Yeah, it's something to talk about, complain about. Hey, we got the win. It wasn't sexy, but it's a win. SEC's been getting a lot of unsexy wins for the last several weeks. So
absolutely. So when you look at it overall, man, when you look at the body of work, and I think Jaywalk is getting ready to come in here in just a second. I just sent the link to him. When you look at the body work overall, man, if I were to say A, B, C, when you're talking about the grades, where do you okay, he said 5 minutes, he'll be on. He'll have it set up. But when you look at the overall grade from an offense, we'll do the offense first. Offensive perspective, what grade would you give?
For specific position groups, or just the offense in general?
Just the offense in general. We don't have to go on the whole, just the offense in general. Overall, what would you give the position
overall group? For the game, or for the season to date? For the game?
For the game. For this game, the Arizona State game. And shout out to Giovanna. She says, glad I found your channel dedicated to USC football. Glad it popped up when I signed into YouTube. Hey, let the church say amen for Giovanna. Hey, thank you for tapping in with us. Thank you. Hey, we here. This is what we do. Appreciate you tapping in. And you can connect as well at USCJ32 on Instagram. We post a lot of information on there as well. So what's the overall grade?
For yesterday's game, I give the offense a C. And really, from execution to penalties, I'll give it a C-. From execution to penalties, receiver drops, Caleb not getting, delay of games, not getting in and out, the plays in and out. It was just disjointed. There was never a flow, it seemed like. And we got away from, and it's coaching as well, we got away from the running game. The running game was there, but we chose to just get enamored. And I was having flashbacks, Jay, and let me know what you think, but I was very disappointed last year at Utah when we got away from the run. We had Travis Dye, Austin Jones, and you get up 21-7, control the clock. You're in a hostile environment. Keep the ball away from Cam Rising. We couldn't stop their tight end, and we made him a first-round draft pick. I don't even want to remember his name, but you know who I'm talking about, Dalton Kincaid.
Oh my God.
So you got to make in-game adjustments. And so that's what I'm a little bit disappointed, because I saw some of the same stuff last night. It's like, just go to what's going to be solid for you. And it was on display. What grade do you give?
Man, I guess we probably did need to go individual, but as a whole, I would kind of say a C, because I know that they're way better than that. Yep. Marshawn Lloyd, he gets the MVP of the game from an offensive side of the ball. He ran the ball, 15 carries, 154 yards. He had a groove going on. I wish he would have got the ball way more than what he had. But I'm going to give him a C, because there's too much explosive. They got way too many guys that are explosive. It's kind of uncalled for to kind of be running like the little engine that could at the beginning. But then you didn't really get it going to later on, and then you got it going on in spurts. So I'm going to give them a C. But I got love for them. I know that they're an A-plus team. They're the best offense in the country. That's why I give them a C. Not because of they are a C team. They are the best offense in the country. You play like the best team in the country, like you're supposed to, live up to your potential. So from a defensive side, what's your perspective? A, B, C, D? What do you think?
I'll give us a B minus. and we didn't, the linebackers were over pursuing. So that was a concern. The tackling was a concern at points as well. But but the offense put the defense in a lot of bad positions. But they didn't quit. And I give them a B minus because they didn't quit. And we saw flashes at the very end of the fourth quarter of what this defense can be, and I think will be as we progress through the season. I loved what I saw from Bear Alexander, Jamil Muhammad, Carmelo Height. Solomon Byrd is showing you how solid he is. Kalen Bullock with that interception. So I think there was that's why I'm giving a B minus. There are some things obviously we have to correct. I think at linebacker, and then obviously with tackling. There was that one play on the sideline in the second half where two defenders didn't wrap up Scatabo, or the second one could have used the boundary and knocked him out of bounds, but he didn't. He made a bad decision, and it's thud him up and wait for thud him up and get defenders to help you out, but don't be lunging and grabbing for the ankles.
Right. So I think I'm gonna give him a C, and the reason being is that a C plus. The reason being is I really want to give him a B when you talk about the front seven. We probably did need to go position group, but the front seven they're still doing their thing. When you factor in the trick play call, I mean we got to factor that in because that goes against pass, and that was a pass. How long was that pass? Was that 30 yards, 40? How far was that?
Something like that.
Yeah. So when you factor that aspect of it in, it was kind of that takes a hit on the numbers when you talk about from a defensive perspective. So I think I'm gonna give them a C. But I think they can live up. When you look at how they swarm the ball, we look at how we shut out Stanford. 49 points? Was it 0 in the first half? Last 49-3.
Game, 49-3.
49-3. We got to kind of look. They got to live up to their expectations. Hey, Half Breed, what's up, my man? They got to live up to their expectations as well, man. So that's where I kind of stand with that. And anything you want to say on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, they had so many trick plays that Jay, I got lost in the Alfredo sauce in the first quarter. I'm like, wait a minute, they punted the ball, and why wasn't Zachariah Branch back there?
Yeah.
And Tim Prangley shared with me, on the postgame show, like, hey, because Scatabo was back there and they didn't know if he was going to run the play or not, and he did a pooch kick. I mean, they were using Scatabo for everybody. And so I'm like, wait, where was Zachariah? How? That's a special teams issue. Why? And so, yeah, man, I mean, I got fooled on that. But they were throwing out the kitchen sink and everything. What's up? What's up, Jaywalk?
Big J, what's the word? I thought you was lost in the open house sauce, man.
Hey, man. Yeah, we got it in a little earlier today, so I was able to get here on on the back half. The back half. I'm late but never forgotten, baby. What's up?
Hey man,
Happy
hey,
birthday Sunday.
you late, but you here, man. You know,
Yes, sir.
me and Tim, we got into it, man. We got the information going, and we talked about the AP, the top 25. We talked about the performance last night, man. Your overall thoughts, as you gave it the opportunity to let it sink in, man. We just want to hear from you. What you think? You slept on it. What you think when you woke up? What were your thoughts?
Well, so I got to watch the game live with LBC at the Tustin Brewery Company.
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Yeah.
I believe that's the proper name for it. And so we enjoyed the game live. So I watched the game. And then last night I came home, and throughout this morning I watched the film. There's a difference between watching a game and watching a film. Whenever I watch a game, I'm slightly more emotional. I'm slightly more invested. I'm a little more critical. And I do, against my human nature, I allow the commentary bias or the commentary narrative to creep into my.
I don't even want to talk about them. They crazy.
Decisions, right?
They are absolutely crazy, man.
But look, here's what I'm going to say. After watching the film versus listening to the commentary while watching a game in a group setting, I have two concerns that are so welcome. The concerns that I have, I would have loved to have these concerns last season, right? Because the things that I'm most concerned with are so easily repairable that I recognize how talented we could be. Now, I'm going to actually keep those concerns to myself for now until after the Colorado game, because I just want to see if it was a one-off anomaly that this concern arose based on coming off of a bye week, losing momentum, really undervaluing your opponent, having some pre toughest phase of our schedule jitters and playing in their first away game. There's a lot of factors that leads to how I think we performed overall. And this is the tail end of the first quarter of the season. All right. Not only that, but unbeknownst to the general population who don't pay attention to the fact that these are not just professional athletes, these kids are taking tests right now as well. And I had to think about all that. Like, this is the first quarter of their test season. There's a lot that goes into being a student athlete. And it was something that Eric Gentry alluded to in his post-game interview. He was saying what I was thinking and what I was feeling. There are off-the-field distractions when you play at USC. One, the media machine. Two, the pressure that you have from society, general population, the institution, and the fans, etc. Three, the academic workload is tumultuous. And right now, it's time for those kids. They're taking tests. They're in the midst of like a lot of tough transitions, right? On top of trying to win a national championship, trying to win a Pac-12 championship. Now, I accompany that with what Eric said, and he said, most people will never understand what goes into being a college player. Most people will never understand all of the things that we have to balance, engage, and juggle throughout our everyday life, plus the personal pressure and position we put on ourselves. So I'm excited about what I saw from a potential standpoint, because I know we didn't play well. Even though we had 8 sacks, 14 tackles for loss, a lot of quarterback pressures, we showed up a lot of ways, but we also gave up some explosive plays. If we can give up half of those explosive plays, then we're beating them 56 to 17, right? If we can give up half of those explosive plays, which the explosive plays came off of trickeration. It wasn't just like, I'm going to flat out beat you with scheme. So I'm okay with that, because I believe now that we're aware that trick plays are going to always be an ever-present part of a team's game plan against us, I don't believe too many teams are going to catch us flat-footed again. All right, I'm trying to get my thoughts out before we run out of time here. And from an offensive standpoint, it was very, very evident that our offensive production was out of rhythm, out of sync, and we still put up 42 points. We still did not have the most efficient day. We had critical drops from athletes who we can depend on. We have critical false starts and mistiming and all sorts of things. Yeah, we played about as bad as a team could play for about 75 to 80% of that game, and we still dominated. And by the world standards, we actually did blow them out. If you just were looking at the stats without looking at the game, if you look at we went 500 yards total offense. We had almost 200 yards rushing or something like that. We averaged over 11 something yards per carry. Caleb did what Caleb does, although there was some mishaps. The offensive line did dominate. Our defensive line did have the most productivity it had all season. And yet we're complaining and feeling bad. That's because we have high standards here. The truth is we got work to do. The truth is we're still working. And the truth is we did come underprepared for that game.
Absolutely. And do you think, and we talked about this, not to backtrack, but I do want to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think that we lost some momentum just giving away that bye week? I talked about it was strategically placed there. Just I've never seen a bye week that early. I mean, when you played, did you ever? I mean, you played at Arizona State. What game did that was that? That was like it was like four straight, right? Or the fifth straight?
I think Arizona State was our fifth game.
Yeah.
I believe fourth or fifth. So we had Hawaii, Arkansas. We had Hawaii, Arkansas. I'm thinking 2005, and I'm trying to remember this lineup. We had Hawaii, Arkansas, Arizona. Then I think we had ASU or Oregon. It was in that first 4 to 5 games, right? But one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is USC has played Arizona State. What? Little
40. That was the 40th game.
40 something games, right? And
40.
That was the 40th game?
Yes, it was.
And was that the 30th time we beat them?
It was the 24th time that we beat them.
Out of 40 games?
Yep.
So you're saying they're winning the series?
No, we won 24 out of 40.
24 out of 40.
Yeah, we just had 40. Yeah.
And let's think, the margin of victory between those games was usually about a score. So it's not like we have a history of blowing Arizona State out. Like, guys, they're always playing us competitively.
I think people have selective amnesia, man.
They do, and we do, and we have selective support. That's the thing
can you say that one more time?
Yeah, man, we do have selective support.
Right.
We want to support when everything feels like we want it to feel, and then we want to complain when it doesn't feel. The fact is did we win or not?
We won.
What did Coach Carroll say? Because I played in a lot of 1.5 score games.
You don't win the game in the first quarter. You don't win the game in the second quarter. You don't win the game in the third quarter. You win it in the fourth quarter.
And that's when you win the game.
Absolutely.
Is that what Jaywalk, is that what he told you in the locker room?
That was the exact quote.
There you go.
Coach Carroll helped us put on the blinders of social perceptions and say, we just got to do what we got to do. And recognize that every single person that we play is going to fight you like George Foreman and Muhammad Ali. They're going to give you the best fight that they can muster up. And there's very often, a tremendous downfall. After a team plays USC, they lose like 2 or 3 games.
Yeah, you brought up that 2005 season, Jaywalk, and you did start off at Hawaii, 63-17.
Yep.
You hosted Arkansas. That was such a joyous game. I was in the Collie. You were playing there.
Very similar to Stanford.
Yep, 70-17. You broke their spirit. Mm-hmm. And that team went on to win. That team went on to go be 10-3. The next year they went 10-3. But then you go up to Eugene and you win 45-13 to start off 3-0. And oh, by the way, you got to go to ASU for that fourth game. And it was 21-3 at halftime. And as we promoted for your appearance, and thank you so much, Jaywalk. That was amazing what you did to get everybody energized at Tustin Bruin. That was amazing. But we shared that Jaywalk had his second interception with a minute left to go. Keith Jackson called your interception. Intercepted in the end zone by John Walker, his second of the day. And had they got that touchdown, it would have been 38-35, line up for an onside kick. But it was 21-3.
That's right.
And that was a challenging game, Jaywalk, right? And we ran the ball. Reggie Bush, Lindell, 355 yards, 4 touchdowns. But ASU is not an easy out. There's always a rivalry there. And I shared with USCJ and the viewers in the chat that the fourth game, because we were talking about it last night, and I woke up this morning, had my cup of coffee, and I looked at previous games from 2002 on, and there have been some losses, and I'm not going to go through them again, but that was one of the years, and it's challenging. You've got these 18 to 23, 24-year-old kids, and mistakes are going to happen, and life happens, but you figure out a way and you fight on.
Come on.
Absolutely.
We play by every stretch of a term a poor overall performance based on our ability, based on our aptitude. Everybody else in the world, if Ohio State had that score, we'd be raving how dominant they were. If Georgia had that score, they're the kings of the land.
Hold on, Jay. Jay, think about this. Think about it. What was the score yesterday? It's crazy.
Linda, listen. Like, guys, yes.
They get Arizona State, man. I'm telling you.
Yes, Arizona State put up a very valiant fight. They had some individual efforts, and just like I said in the week leading up to this, every single week that you get a USC matchup, a new hero in college football will be born from the other team. Every single week, you will learn a new name in the NCAA to look at. This week, it was Scatterbo.
That's very good. That's right.
Because people can summon up the human competitive fortitude to give everything they have to play the Trojans. And it is heroic when you see that. It is what makes this game so enriching. I don't want to play football games where I know there's a guaranteed win or outcome. I get bored of that. That's just me. I want to know that there's going to be a competitive bite to that game. Of course, I want to win. I want to win and come out on top on the other side of those games. But if you were guaranteed a victory just because you showed up, none of us would tune in to watch. The fact that there is a potentiality, the fact that there is a small inclination that someone can actually win against us is what makes this game worth investing your spirit in. Thank God we got to get tested this early. Thank God we got to fix some hiccups. Thank God we saw a couple of the little mushy, gushy things we don't like. I'm glad we saw it now because that's cleanup tape that we need to continue to better ourselves along this journey. And we need about 2 or 3 more of those types of games. We don't need those games happening in critical moments when the pressure is tighter. We don't need that when the noose is tighter. And it's like, okay, it's Washington, USC. They're both undefeated. Washington's been tested 2 or 3 times. This is USC's first real test. I don't want that. Because coaches get tight with how they play call. Special teams gets tight with how they execute. Refereeing gets tight because they understand the ramifications of this game. Everything gets tight in those moments. They can trickle away. I'm loving the fact that our athletes got to feel a small bit of artificial duress. It was fake duress. In actuality, we were never in that much trouble. It just felt like we were. Okay.
Does that mean that we have to add Scatterbo? You gave me nightmares. Do we have to add Scatterbo to the list of Jaquiz Rogers?
I'm proud of him.
Tavita Pritchard.
Listen, his whole life, he gets to tell his children, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, he gets to talk about that game where he went off against the Heisman-winning led USC Trojans back in 2023. And he gets to pull up those amazing clips of him being an absolute rock star in college football. I'm proud of him, man. I'm proud of him. When he transferred from the school he was at to come to Arizona State, those are the dreams he had in his life, to play against USC in that moment. And I'm glad that his coaches put him in that position. Let's be honest. Yes, we don't want to see our teams get dominated at all. But I love competition. My mission is competition. And we need more of it to continue to build to where we're supposed to go. All right? Let's stop being fickle with how we judge things, because we would not hold any other teams to that standard.
Exactly.
We just don't. Notre Dame squeaked by, and they're saying they're great, right? All season long. They weren't showing me anything super dominant. Ohio State squeaked by. They're saying they're great. Texas squeaked by. Alabama squeaked by. Georgia, meh. See, what, dude? Let's just keep playing. We have some of the best teams in the country that we're going to play in Oregon and Washington. We're going to get everybody's best shot. We still got Utah. There's a lot more competition and a lot more meat left on the bone. And I'm glad that our coaches still haven't shown our hand yet. I am glad that the defense got to rally and figure out how to come on strong. And at the end of that game, if they can do it at the end of that game, I promise you they have the potential and there is a propensity to do it in the middle and throughout.
Man, I totally agree, man. And how good do you have to be to essentially play your worst game and still win by 14 points away? That just lets you know what type of guys that we have, man, and the caliber of guys that we have. And, man, so any thoughts, man, before we get out of here? We've been on for about an hour before we check out of here. Overall, Jaywalk, what's your grade? Me and Rick, we gave them a grade. I gave them a C on offense and a C on defense. Not saying that they're bad, but just I know the potential is a lot higher and the ceiling is a lot higher for those guys. If you were to give those guys grades from the offense and the defense before we go, what would you give them?
All right. I'm low key grading on a curve, but I'm giving them a B minus on defense because we had 14 tackles for loss. We had forced fumbles, 8 sacks, INTs. We forced 3 punts, and we gave up, 350 yards?
I probably should have gave him a B too. That's kind of doing, I mean, you're right, man. You're absolutely right.
Think about
I can't get lost in the influence sauce by some of this other stuff, man.
It's
crazy, man.
Jaywalk, I gave the same grade. I gave a B minus. I gave a B minus.
Yeah. But I totally agree. I agree.
But the fact that we gave up multiple explosive plays, which most came on trick plays,
that was factoring in some of my.
That's influencing. Yeah. That's influencing. Right. I think the awareness will come. Sierra Wright is gonna learn to man turn in that deep ball position in the red zone. He's a sound corner that is fundamentally correct about 85 to 90% of the time. DBs get beat. Listen, defensive backs get beat. But when your defensive back is a liability, is a problem. And so far, we don't have any liabilities in our secondary. We do have to wrap up when we tackle. And I believe consensually, the entire team recognizes that. I believe Coach Grinch recognizes that with how he slants and doing certain things, we can set a stronger edge. After watching the film, I realized we did have a soft edge on a lot of those weird, like where they were faking it and then getting outside. That's a soft edge. But they never ran that offense before, so I can see why that could be confusing to game plan that. Now I believe that we're going to have a stronger edge. We're going to have a point man. Bear's going to keep doing what he's doing, and we're not going to send our backers to scrape so violently. We can slow play some of these things because we've proven now that we have great rallying team speed, great rallying and backside pursuit. We didn't have that last year. So I know if we missed them the first time, we were in trouble. Now we actually can double back and chase guys down and create second level plays. So I'm like I said, I'm excited to see that. And I know that 2 or 3 more times this year, guess what? Our offense is going to sputter. Our offense is going to struggle because defenses are good and nothing is perfect in college football. So let's get ready. And I believe the defense won the game for us last night against popular belief. The defense is what put us in that game, and the offense was motivated by the defense.
I totally agree. Man. LBC, any last thing that you wanted to say? Shout out to Jamie, man. He says more tackling issues at certain times versus defensive breakdowns. I totally agree.
Right.
And you guys already know Hayes Pilar, he was on here. He said you got to do your individual assignment, me versus the man that's in front of me. And if you don't execute that, you cannot put that on Alex Grinch. You just can't do that. Yeah. LBC.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me on, Jay. I appreciate it. And I'll just say what I said, on the show is that I outlined it. USC has historically had challenges in the 4th game with the road game, and we persevered by the greatest margin in the 9 or 10 examples that I laid out to begin the show. So hey, all is well. A win's a win. We move on to Colorado. The great thing about it is the Pac-12 is on fire this year, unlike any other conference. And so you see that with the AP poll today, right, Jay? Is that you got 4 teams in the top 10. You have 1 team from the SEC in the top 10. So that's what's comforting. It doesn't matter where USC is ranked right now. It's that we've got those games coming up. The ones like, this, Jay. What did Pete Carroll say about November? Jaywalk?
No loss November.
What's that?
There is no loss November.
It's a November to remember, right?
And
November
he called it no loss November.
There you go. And that's what's going to take. So, game by game, we get better. We saw what's happened to the defense. I think there's some positive things to move forward. And we'll see what's happening in Colorado, because that, friends, is a national stage. All eyes are going to be on that, literally.
Absolutely.
Big noon kickoff. So it's in front of us, Trojans, and it's exciting.
Amen. Yeah. Hey, let the church say amen. So, look, man, we appreciate everybody. We got 150 in here, and it's been kind of stayed strong with this. We appreciate everybody for tapping in, man. Everybody, very interactive today. We appreciate that, man. So, look, you guys already know more information to be coming. Rick will be coming on. Jaywalk is a regular. We appreciate everybody for just tapping in, man. Until later on, everybody stay blessed. You will hear from me tomorrow morning. Until later on, everybody stay blessed. Fight on, fight on, fight on.
Fight on.